Let me take a brief look at this fellow, Nathaniel, who appears in the gospel reading today. He's an interesting fellow for a couple of reasons. He appears only in the Gospel of John. Now, he is mentioned here in the chapter 1 in John. We'll find him again at the end of the Gospel in chapter 21, where he is one of 7 who follow Peter. They're disillusioned. They don't believe in Jesus anymore. He was crucified. He was a failure. And Peter said, I'm going fishing. And 7 of them go off fishing. And then they go through a conversion where Jesus draws them back. Nathaniel is one of the 7 that goes fishing, which leads us to believe he was involved in fishing. Even though he comes from Cana, which is not near the Sea of Galilee. Well, it's not far away, but it's not like Bethsaida, where Peter, Andrew, James, and John, who were fishermen. But since he went fishing there in chapter 21, we presume he was a fisherman. The second thing that's interesting about this fellow is he seems to have been a friend of Philip, because Philip is the one that met him and said, come and see, okay? Now, when you go back and look at the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, where the 12 apostles are named, they're not named in the Gospel of John, but when the 12 apostles are named, Nathaniel does not appear. He's not mentioned. In all the accounts of the 12, Nathaniel doesn't appear. But you have Peter, Andrew, who are brothers, James and John, who are brothers, and then you go down and you get Philip and Bartholomew. Which gives us the impression Bartholomew must be Nathaniel. So all scholars conclude that Nathaniel actually was his first name. Bartholomew is Bar-Tholomai, which means son of Ptolemy. You know, Simon Bar-Jonah, Simon, son of John. So we have the same fellow here that appears in John's Gospel named Nathaniel. It appears in the other 3 Gospels as Bartholomew, the same person. And of course, you know, they're all fishermen, with 1 or 2 exceptions, but they're fishermen. What's interesting about this fellow, Nathaniel, in the Gospel of John, is that Jesus gives him the greatest compliment anywhere toward anyone in the life of Christ. He sees him coming and he said, this man is a true Israelite. There is no guile in him. I've always been fascinated by that Jesus could look at this man and say, there's no guile in him. He's a straight arrow. He's decent. He's honorable. He's truthful. There's nothing about this man which is duplicitous. It's amazing. I've always found that quite remarkable. He couldn't say that about any of the others, but he says it about Nathaniel, that he is a man of truth, a man of honor, a man of integrity. And he calls him to be one of his followers. I've often wondered, how many of us could stand in the presence of Jesus and say, this is a person that has no guile, no hidden agenda, totally transparent, totally honest, honorable, truthful. It's amazing that he could say this about Nathaniel, the Son of God, speaking about Nathaniel. It prompts us to take a certain look at ourselves. I'm not sure that Jesus could look at me and say, this is a man without guile. We're all human. We all kind of make mistakes and we do things that are not entirely straightforward. But to look at ourselves, Nathaniel stands before us to question our conscience, to say, how truthful are you? How honorable are you? How reliable? How predictable are you? How faithful are you? That's That's the inquisition that comes to each one of us when we meet this fellow, Nathaniel, whom Jesus holds up and says, this man is without guile. I've always wondered about that. I mean, I've written journals on that. Jesus, what would Jesus look at me and he would say, okay, I'm not without guile. I'm a man of truth, honor, fidelity. It's amazing. So catch the word of God today and carry it in your reflection, or write a note on it or so. Say, how honorable am I? Truthful, reliable, predictable. That's the inquisition that comes here from this gospel reading today, where we meet this fellow, Nathaniel, otherwise known as Bartholomew. We pause now for a moment of prayer.